Welcome to this edition of Fire Department Connection. I'm Deputy Chief Shelley Jameson. I'm in charge of Operations Safety and Communication.
And I'm PJ Dean, Secretary and Communications Director for the United Phoenix Firefighters Association.
On this edition of Fire Department Connection, we'll examine a near miss involving Ladder 4.
This is our opportunity to work together as labor and management to inform all the members of all the important issues going on within the Phoenix Fire Department.
In addition, we'll look at what it means to be in manual mode drill in the alarm room.
We'd like to thank our brothers and sisters in the alarm room for always having our back and doing what they do best.
Phoenix Fire Department is working really hard to being able to communicate and being able to provide timely news to its members. At the same time, we're also trying to provide effective training for our members. These two sometimes are mutually exclusive, but oftentimes they have to work together to be able to do that. One's going to contain more detail than the other. Right now, the training section is working with the communication and public affairs section to the Phoenix Fire Department to be able to do both. You'll see a lot more videos like this one you're about to watch on Ladder 4 that's meant to provide you with some information and some timely news for these types of events. You'll also see events like this used in training, and we're going to be very specific about how we use them in training for the particular elements with them that's going to help us improve our performance, improve our decision making, and how we work on fire scenes. Please pay attention. Keep an eye out for these. They're meant to keep you informed. If you have any questions about this or you have any questions about training, please do not hesitate to call us either in the communication side of the fire department or in the training side. Thank you.
If you poked your head outside at lunch, you may have seen all the smoke from the scrap metal fire near 35th Avenue and Broadway. But Phoenix Fire, we understand, had a near catastrophe out there trying to put this thing out. Jason Valentine joins us live out there with what happened. Jason?
SA Recycling is the company, and they were helping firefighters. Two of its cranes were pulling the scrap piles apart so firefighters could spray water down into those flames. Now, at some point, one of those cranes swung around and smashed into the ladder, extended about 70 or 80 feet with 3 firefighters in the bucket.
The call kicked out, we were responding from the CTC. I was looking at the AVL and I noticed that Scott was about 30 seconds behind me, so I called him on the phone. I said, hey Scott, we're going to metals management, we've been here 100 times. I said, go in off Elwood. I said, I'm ahead of you. I'm going to go ahead and set up the CV because we need the practice. We're all new, and we set the CV up and then got ready for him. Scott took command and transitioned over pretty quick.
So as a younger BC, I was like, cool, all right, South Deputy's calling me, this is how we're going to do it. So having a little bit of a game plan before I even got here was really helpful. And I had been listening to the radio, so I heard Engine 39, Travis Hinton, those guys did a good job. I knew where he was starting, I knew where he was putting people. I'm writing down, I'm tracking companies. So when we got here and South Deputy was here, I don't think the CV van was quite here yet, but we have a really good game plan for a fire that it seems like we come to a couple times a year.
So it's a deep-seated fire. It's generally before everything's put on the conveyor. The grapplers behind us there take the large scrap metal cars and any kind of big pieces of metal, and then they pick it up with a grapple and they set it on a conveyor. The conveyor goes, takes it up to a crusher smashes it up into like pulp and then spits it out over here, and that's the finished product. If something gets in there or there's a spark that happens in the conveyor, something like that, and generally a lot of those cars still have the upholstery in them, so you know that tends to catch fire, and then it's always a real deep-seated fire where we have to work with the equipment to pull it apart, otherwise you know, we're here for a day at a time.
Heavy equipment and these big defensive fires, my whole time in my short 17 years in Phoenix, that's every day. It's, oh, we got a mulch fire, front end loader, oh, we got this, use the grapplers. And it's a luxury to have them because it makes things go a lot quicker. You know, instead of a 2-day fire, a deep-seated metal fire, you're picking the pile apart, you're hitting it with big water. It just really speeds up the process, which in turn benefits the business. It benefits our guys because they're not here as long taking a beating, especially in the summer months with the heat. You're not having to use as many crews. You're not draining the city of as many resources. So the grapplers here, the front end loaders at mulch fires, those are huge assets, and we've used them successfully for years without incidents. We just always got to be cognizant of the fact that it's heavy equipment, it's dangerous, we got to have a plan, and we did have a plan, but we just always got to have that situational awareness, communication with the operators for it to be successful.
I was put into place as South Sector. I had 4 engines, 2 ladders, and they were all in place when I got there. So it was really a turnkey operation. Everybody was in a good spot except for the ladder. We knew we were there for the long haul, so we got everything in place the way we wanted it. When I arrived on scene, we didn't have a smoke issue. About 5 minutes, 10 minutes into it, we had smoke conditions change. We were all suited up with SCBAs, full turnouts, everybody in the sector was protected. We were driving command's plan. We were going to divide the pile and put the fire out. We had plenty of water, we had 2 hydrants pumped. We had everything we needed. Like I said, we just made the one adjustment with the ladder company, and we were good to go after that. So we were just driving the plan.
Doug Graham, Battalion 7 with South Sector, they were doing a great job. This fire was going along just fine. We were 90 minutes into this. We were on the downhill slide. Things are going well. Doug had a real good plan in South Sector. He had talked to the heavy equipment operators. He had an RP with communications to that equipment operator. So really the plan was in place. The fire was going very well, and we were definitely on the downhill slide when 90 minutes into it, we end up with a mayday.
We're talking to the operator now. Stand by. The operator on the radio. Stand by. South Sector, ladder 4. Ladder 4. Well, Greg, you guys back off a little bit for now so we can talk to this guy. Going back. You hit it pretty hard. Ladder 4 took a direct hit with that crane.
Commander, South Sector.
South Sector.
Talk to me, Doug.
We've got a grappler that came in close contact with ladder 4. We're talking to the operator now.
Command copies. I want a par on the guys in the bucket, and I want to know if we have a mayday on the fire ground.
Negative on the mayday. I'll work on the par.
Command copy.
When the mayday came out, we were on the downhill slide. We hadn't had radio communications for 10 minutes. We were sitting in the command van talking, and all of a sudden the mayday comes out. We get a tone from the alarm room. It calls another mayday. So the alarm room, the person in the alarm room didn't want to step over the mayday, and so some stuff got kind of mixed up, and so we just had to grab hold of it. We asked a very specific set of questions to the sector guys to figure out if our guys were okay. Did we have a par? Have we lost anyone? Is anybody injured? Once we got all that figured out, then we had the mayday resolved.
One thing I want to stress is we didn't just put these grapplers into service willy-nilly. We had a plan. We powwowed with the workers and the operators of the equipment to make them understand kind of what we wanted to do. We have a really good idea of how we want to operate safely on the fire ground. Their idea of safety is different than our idea of safety. Their idea of safety, or their idea, I think, is really get this fire put out so they can go back to work in the fastest way possible. And our idea is to put it out quickly, but let's do it safely. So there may have been a barrier there to get that message across. So once we put those grapplers into service, that's when we had the event later in the fire. Then we had a strike on the ladder bucket. Ironically, I had my back to the incident because I was headed to the guy with the radio to shut the grappler down when we had the strike. We actually had 2 strikes. The operator swung over with the arm and hit the ladder. When he came back, he hit it again. I didn't actually witness the strike myself because, like I said, I was trying to communicate with the foreman. But the guys in the buckets described it as they thought they were coming out of the bucket, so it was a significant strike.
Our guys, if we're operating in there, we just need to make sure that we're situationally aware. If they're moving the grapples around, then we got to kind of pull back and take a look and say, we talked about it at the CTC, we called it the strike zone. Those guys are swinging. They have limited visibility on the right-hand side, and you can see if you get video of it, you can see that they can't see when they're swinging right. So you really have to pay attention, be situationally aware, and basically make the assumption that they don't see you. So you got to be a little bit smarter than them. This kind of fire, you have to look at the risk, and what's the risk, and what are you trying to do? That is a business, and that is his money. That's his cash flow. So yeah, we're going to be in a defensive strategy, but we're going to be in the yellow in risk management. We're going to risk a little, to save savable property. And so when you're doing that, you have to look at it just in that regard, that's what you're there for, and you take a little bit of risk, but it has to be very, very calculated.
One of the challenges that we had, maybe you can hear it now, is the noise. We had a lot of noise on the fire ground, and trying to communicate some of those things back to command. I missed the Mayday. I didn't hear the Mayday, and I didn't hear the tone. The only thing first thing I knew about the Mayday was when command came back to me and said, "What's our Mayday?" And we didn't have one, as far as I could tell. So that was one of the challenges that we had. I would slow that down on the front end, because once we get everything into place, these fires go out really quickly with these grapplers in place. One of the things we talked about at the CTC after this incident was sometimes Maydays don't come in the way we rehearse them. Sometimes they, like we said on this one, sometimes they come in sideways. And so we have to be prepared for that and learn how to react to that, which I think we did. I mean, it may have seemed like a long time, but in reality, it was just a few seconds until we got some communication going on what the real situation was. It really turned out not to be a Mayday at that point, but for the operators in that bucket, they thought it was a Mayday, and that's why they called it. So I would say that they don't happen exactly how we practice that they happen. Somebody might come in sideways, and we got to be ready for that.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Case. I'm the Deputy Chief over the Phoenix Regional Dispatch Center. And you're probably asking yourself, why all the manual mode drills recently? We in the alarm room have increased the frequency of those to ensure that we're competent in managing those situations where our CAD goes out. It's a chaotic time for us and a challenging time for us in the alarm room. So we wanted to take a few minutes just to kind of show you what it looks like in the alarm room during manual mode.
Attention all personnel. Alarm is on manual mode. We are operating by radio only without computer-aided dispatch capabilities. The station printers and the MCTs are down.
We are basically back to paper, pre-CAD times. And so it's important for us to practice. It's important for us to process information. We are literally handling real calls during manual mode. So our ability to be effective at doing that is critical, and that's why we practice. That's why you're going to see at least one manual mode drill per month per shift. So now let's hear a little bit from the field, from a field perspective on what goes on during manual mode and how you can be effective.
Some of the things you can do to survive these is have things assigned to each individual person. Know who's going to write down the information, what information they're going to write down, the address, the channel, the map page, as well as know who's going to have their cell phone. With cell phones, you can use those to map yourself in, know who's going to bring those, but also know who's going to use the map book and make sure someone's proficient with it in case you're out and about and you don't have a cell phone to use to get you mapped in. So these things are going to help you survive in the case of the drills and in case there is an actual event where we don't get that warning that we'll get from the alarm room.
What we want to make you guys aware of is when the alarm room goes into manual mode, your station package is still going to work. So it's not like you need to sit there and listen to channel 1 the whole time, especially when they're doing their drill at 2 in the morning. We know that's not very fun. But everybody on the truck has to have a plan, so when we do go into this function, we can do it right. With the addresses, your phones are great. Use your phone if it works for you. If you're going to a house, that's great. But we got to have people proficient in the map books as well too. So make sure somebody on the truck can use the map book to get you there, especially since a lot of our first dues are going consistently to apartment complexes. You're going to want to use the multi-resident book, the yellow one, to find the exact apartment rather than just the complex. So we're going to see about 3 of these drills a month with the alarm room folks working on this, and then the CAD could crash at any time, and we've seen that happen before. So if it does, we want to make sure everybody's ready and everybody has a plan on how to do this so we still give the best service delivery.
So Dana and Scott gave you some good tips on how you can be more effective as a crew during manual mode. And I just want to emphasize a few things that they mentioned. When we're communicating from the field back to the alarm room during manual mode, everything has to be verbalized. And remember that our tactical radio operators are not just managing one channel, so it's a very challenging time for them. So using the order model, clearly clearing alarm and then acknowledging available on radio, available in quarters, on scene. Those things are time-stamped and they're very important. The alarm room can do that, but you have to clear alarm. Any other communications as far as on-scene reports, actions on the fire ground need to be communicated using the order model. One thing that's really important too, I know they mentioned the importance of having somebody that's assigned to write and to take notes once that dispatch comes out. Your station packages will be up. In other words, you'll get lights and you'll hear radio, but if you're not ready, if somebody's not ready to write that information down when it comes out, you might miss some things. And for you to go back to the truck and then clear alarm and ask for an address or a map page or a radio channel, remember, they're busy during that time. So the more you can do on the front end to set your crew up for success without having to clear alarm, the better. So just to emphasize some of the things that Scott and Dana mentioned that will help you be effective and will help us work together as a team to function during manual mode, so that when because we know we will, have a CAD situation where we are in true manual mode, we'll all be at our best. Thank you and have a safe shift.
On the next edition of Fire Department Connection, we'll examine a first alarm fire at the Guitar Center and some of the lessons learned.
You'll also be hearing from Vice President Willingham regarding the new unit, Low Acuity 18, running out of Phoenix Fire Station 18, that has allowed the membership there to serve the public better, but also give some much needed relief to the call volume.
If there's anything you'd like to see or hear on Fire Department Connection, please let us know.
And as you know, the door is always open at 61 East Columbus for any of the members' needs or information they might need to have.
Take care and have a safe shift.